Hi, everyone, and welcome to Let's Not Circle Back. I'm Pam Jeffords, and I'm here again with my amazing co-host, Dr. Patrice Palmer. Today, we're talking about one of my favorite topics, feedback. And other than pay, it is still the number one thing employees are asking for more of. So why do we avoid it? And why does it feel so uncomfortable, especially when employees are asking for it? We're going to talk about how it can become one of the most powerful tools for growth when it's done well. We're going to unpack what effective feedback really looks like. We're going to clear the air on some really bad advice many of us have been given. If you all remember that shit sandwich we were told to do, which is say something nice, hit them hard with constructive feedback, and then close with something positive. And spoiler alert, that didn't work then, and it doesn't work today. So finally, we're going to discuss how to create conversations that build trust instead of tension. So let's go ahead and jump right into it.
I want us to start off with me painting a picture for you. So go down this kind of rabbit hole with me. So I'm in a meeting, and before the meeting starts, they always ask you if we're going to be going over lunch to let us know what you possibly would want for lunch. And so before I could even go through the menu, they were like, you really want to try this cheeseburger? And I'm like, okay, you've already kind of decided for me, love a good burger. And it was she is really given some great praise on this burger. So I'm like, cool. I get to the meeting and they're like, Patrice, your burger is here. And I'm like, oh yes, I didn't even eat before I got here. I actually forgot this is what we were supposed to be doing. I am so happy. I just need a good burger. Sometimes you just need a good burger. So I look at the burger and it looks great. It's juicy, it's big, it's a cheeseburger. And so I'm just excited. And I sit down, I unwrap it, I look at everything, and I bite into it. It's not a cheeseburger, at least not with actual beef. It's cold in the center. And it tastes almost like a tofu. And I'm just looking at this beautiful imposter, how dare you? Because it looks like a cheeseburger. It's been marketed to me as a cheeseburger. But the minute it hit the back of my throat, I knew they lied. It wasn't even there was a misrepresentation. No, you lied. And I truly think that is how feedback shows up for so many of us, right? Our leaders dress it up. They tell us that it's going to be something real, something satisfying, that is going to build us in some way. But the minute that you bite into it, you find out it's nothing there. It's vague, it's misleading, it's disappointing, and it just leaves everybody confused because it really has no substance. And at the end of the day, you just feel betrayed, because that's what I felt when I ate that. I felt betrayed, and I realized, oh my God, I took a bite of a shit sandwich. That's what I did. And I know everyone has received that type of feedback from a manager before that just leaves this bad taste in your mouth.
I love it because, in my management training courses, they taught us how to give a shit sandwich. They're like, hey, start off with something nice and then just whack them and then close it with something nice. That was the way we were trained. So for people still doing that, they're like, wait a second, that's the right methodology. I think we're learning how it's not. And my sister-in-law always say feedback's a gift. It's a gift, and it should be part of the employee value proposition. You come in, you join our firm, we're going to give you upskilling opportunities. We're going to give you feedback to make you better. But when people don't do it right, it's like chocolate, right? So it's feedback is a gift if it's a good gift, and if it's not too much of it, it's at the right time. And so I really wanted to talk about today, how do we give good feedback? Because I think many people have been taught wrong. Many people think if they say it nice, I remember my ex-mother-in-law said to me, she saw me once after a few years, and she said, oh my gosh, Pam, I didn't recognize you. And she's smiling and I'm smiling. And she goes, I didn't recognize you. You're just, last time I saw you, you were so thin. And you're like, oh, and then you're like, wait, that was said so nicely, but I still think it was a slam. There's so much research around the poor quality of feedback, and especially when it comes to certain demographics, the feedback's even worse, So we want to, instead of focusing on how bad the feedback is, because I think everybody knows, let's talk about what's good. And then maybe we start with the different types of feedback. Like when we think about feedback, a lot of people think it has to be constructive, but praise is a part of that too. What are the three types of feedback you like people to focus on?
So you have the praise. So when you say praise, you're looking at someone saying, good job, or, recognizing something, in the hardness of whatever the work is, the late nights, the burdens. So giving people praise is one. Another one is developmental. This is, I think, really under leveraged because many people kind of underestimate how to provide that type of information that's going to actually grow the person. And that feedback is actually intended to grow. And this, I think, is the big one. This is what people think that they're actually giving to each other. But if we just wanted to be honest, it's basically just passive aggressiveness that they're really giving, not constructive. So it's typically vague and it's typically sometimes even toxic. And so what a lot of people get from it is you messed up, and that's what they're left with is this feeling of how I messed up in something. But really constructive feedback's whole purpose is to build you up, is to give you, okay, here is what the negative is, but that negative doesn't erase the good that you've done, but I want you to look at this so you can amplify. And so that shit sandwich is what you give people, and what they bite into it, assuming that it's going to be nourishing, that's exactly what is necessary for the job. When they bite into it, real talk, what they're just getting is a waste of time. And they still don't know exactly what they did. And I even say a lot of them walk away thinking that they're actually better than what they are because nobody has clearly told them what the issue is.
I love it. And if we kind of go back to the praise piece too, it's something that's made me very sad, right? Because when I started my career in the late 80s, it was not uncommon for us to hear things like, your paycheck is your thank you, And then as my generation started getting in the workforce, we hated that phrase. And it's like, actually, we would like a thank you. And so we kind of eradicated that. So I'm hearing, especially some of the early in their career going, well, they're, your paycheck's your praise. But I think praise is beyond just that attaboy. Now I'm a big thank you, please pass the water, please do anything. Why not? It's an extra word. And thank you for that. But I think it is back to what you were saying, which is it's acknowledging how hard things are right now. So we're always on the screens a lot. And just acknowledging sometimes it's hard. It's harder than it was before, sometimes for your brain. So I think people need to understand praise isn't only, hey, a pat on the back. It also acknowledges, hey, I understand this is tough. The career coaching and the developmental piece of it, it's very interesting because in our employee engagement surveys that we do for clients, if you ask the question, does your manager give you good coaching and feedback? It's high if they like their manager, right? So that's a real indication of manager satisfaction. But then when you ask it separately, if you drop the word manager, are you receiving enough coaching? It's like, no, like 20%, right? And so you got to pull the word manager out and separate because people have an ability to separate. My firm's not giving me feedback. And you're like, well, who's going to give you the feedback, right? It's not your manager. So employees also need to understand that's a manager's role to give you feedback. But then they're like, well, my manager's so busy. I don't, again, it's always on. I don't want to bother them, right? So bringing that back to managers need to give feedback. They need to give it often, and they need to not do that, the shit sandwich, right?
I love that you brought up time because I do think that timing really affects how you receive feedback. I know I've had supervisors in the past that have the mindset of I'm not going to give you feedback unless something's wrong, which is horrible. Let me preface by saying it's horrible and it always takes you off guard because you're waiting for them to be like, hey, is this correct? And you're constantly kind of on edge of like, I hope I've done enough. I hope I've risen to the challenge. But then you know that the only time they're going to tell you something is when it's wrong. Not even if it's something that can be fixed, but it's as if you didn't do it, right? And so there is that anxiety with my manager of like, if he sends me a message now and say, hey, we need to talk, I'm like, oh God, I don't work here anymore. Because I know they're not going to say anything to me unless it's bad. And so timing really has to do with it. Knowing something in the moment helps so much better. And I get it. You really talked about that even a few minutes ago with people saying, I don't have time. But in the moment feedback is so necessary for folks to know if this is real, like if it's praise, to be able to remind them, like, I see you.
No, and you're right. And the same words could land very different depending on the timing and depending on what you're expecting. You go back to your tofu sandwich, right? If someone had told you, hey, Patrice, I want you to come and really try this amazing, no meat sandwich, you would have probably eaten before. And you would have gone in going, all right, and I'm going to bring a piece of candy afterwards, get it out of my mouth. And so, especially when you're giving feedback up, when your boss has not asked for feedback or somebody or a peer has not asked for feedback, I always tell people, let them know in advance. Just say, hey, I'd like to put some time on your calendar on Friday to talk about, and then tell them what you want to talk about. That gives them that time to process. They know they're expecting it. They're not caught off guard. Because what happens is when someone's caught off guard when you're giving them feedback, and again, most of the time feedback upwards or sideways is unexpected. We haven't gotten into that habit yet. Then the first thing there is defensive. They can't hear because they're so, what the heck is this, right? And you're trapping me. So I always tell folks, let them know, give them at least a day or two. And sometimes if you do say, hey, can I put some time in your calendar on Friday? I want to talk about this. Here's what's going on. A lot of times they'll just come over and say, we can talk now. Like I'm in the moment. But it reminds me of a coach that had a 24-hour rule that said, as a parent, you cannot give me feedback till 24 hours after the game. And the purpose was you need to calm down, you need to get your thoughts together. And by the way, I'm also coming off of the court and I have emotions, right? So you can't expect me to be able to listen to anything constructively, nor can you be constructive in the moment. So the timing is so important of when you give it, letting the person know that they're going to expect it. But there are times where you can give feedback in the moment. And you have to, especially if something's really bad, you can go yikes or ouch, or that's all forms of feedback, right? Sometimes, especially leaders, when there's something happening that's really egregious, a form of feedback is just going like shaking your head or making a face. So we're not saying everything requires that, hey, let's take a pause and let's talk later. There's sometimes where it's, hey, you got to give them the feedback right now.
Yeah, I love that. And I always appreciate the fact that you always bring in, like, body language and noises, they matter. And knowing your people enough to be able to read the room, right? When I'm working with students, like, you got to read the room. Like, people are crashing out here. They are not connected to whatever you're saying. So that means that tempo has to be, volume may have to be, like, read the room. You got to do that even with feedback. There are times where stuff happens and your brain, I think we've talked about this before, your brain to mouth, like that delay is truly like there's a metaphysical thing going on here, right? There's something real happening. But for other people, that brain to mouth pause can be like, they don't care, or they didn't see it the same way I did. And you're like, literally, no, I heard it. I'm just trying to get my thoughts together so that I can respond to it. So it's one of the things that we try to do in telling folks, like, give folks grace in that. But one of the things I think that we don't do enough of is feedback is not, it's a freeway. It's on and off ramps everywhere. So it's not just in your everyday work life. Feedback happens with your friendships. Feedback happens with intimate partners. Like that's still feedback. So I guarantee you, if you were to go and you ask a loved one, like, how do I give you feedback on stuff? You would learn a lot about yourself, and I guarantee you that translates to the boardroom as well. If you're vague with them, you're probably vague with other people. If you're kind of brutally honest and folks are like, yeah, we don't really like how you talk, I can guarantee you there's somebody in your workspace that's saying the same thing. So, like, those are other ways to look at your own feedback as well. Because as you were talking, I'm like, yeah, there are times I don't give good in the moment, but I was trained like that. And it was reinforced. Like, my mother does not give in the moment feedback. Now I have learned to read the facial expressions. That then will get me, hey, we should probably talk about this more. My mama likes to give you an annual performance review, like randomly, year in, like, I need to tell you about yourself. You're like, I am not prepared for this. What are you talking about? But again, I've learned to not receive feedback. And I don't think I'm the best at giving that. And that's one of the reasons we sat down and were like, we got to do this better. And so that was really cool to be able to do that in real time, take a methodology and put it to work and see, are we getting what we're truly looking for? So yeah, that just made me think of that.
I love it. I got asked the other day on a conference, put into chat like your favorite company that you worked for and what about you liked. And I wrote this company that I worked for early in my career. And the reason that I loved it, even though it was a lot of hours, is that they were transparent in the expectations. So when you got there, hey, this is what it's going to be like. Here's how much you're going to get paid. Everybody's paid the same amount for this role. It's going to be horrible for 2 years, but after 2 years, you can write a ticket anywhere. And it was all that was expected. I got great experience. I got to write my ticket where I wanted to go within the organization. And it was a very tough 2 years, but I knew it going in. And my boss was not the nicest person, but everybody always wanted to work for them because even though they weren't nice, they were transparent and you always knew where you stood. And I remember one time we're walking down this group of salespeople and he points to this person. He goes, I thought we fired him. And why is he still here? And the person's just going, and look like, what just happened? But the people around him were like, kind of, okay, that's Richard, right? Because nobody ever wakes up in the morning and says, I wonder how Richard feels, or I wonder if he's mad at him. You knew every single day what was going on. And so it actually made you mentally calmer because you didn't have to stress. Compared to same company, I worked for this guy that everybody was the nicest guy ever, right? So nice. And he had this little notebook and he was always writing in it. And then every 6 months, he would bring you in for feedback. And he would say, he would open up that notebook. And what we didn't realize until later is like there was like sections for each of us. And he's like, so on March 22nd, we were having a conversation and you said this. And I'm like, March 20, like, it's June. And he's like, and then I wish you would have said this instead. And you're like, you have nothing to say, okay. And then on, June 16th, you did this. And I would have rather you do this. But then guess what happens? Every time he took that black book out, what did we all do? We all shut up. We froze because somebody did something wrong. We don't know who. So none of us are going to say anything. And then over time, you stop talking. That style of I'm going to give you feedback every 6 months and I'm going to bring up all the stuff for the last 6 months. We know that's not healthy, but it's not good for your employees to never know how they stand and to think, gosh, I could have done something in January that they're mad about, and I'm not going to find out till June.
Right. And that's toxic, right? That's the definition of a toxic work environment because you never know. I think sometimes when folks think of things that are more direct, oh, that's a toxic environment. Like, no, you always know that that's going to be there. You don't have to walk on eggshells because you know that that's how everybody's going to be. And I think that's one thing that we've found out in our years of working together is my favorite job is working at B Labs because I love being in a space where I'm allowed to just think and grow and be. But at any point, any of my colleagues can pull me to the side and say, hey, can we talk about these things? And so you always say, hey, this is what we're talking about. Would love to hear your feedback on this. So you don't just say, I'm about to tell you all these things and then I got to sit with it. It's like, hey, I want to give you something, but I also want this to be a two-way street. So there may be things that I've missed also. So let's talk about this so that we are on the same page so that we can achieve at the level that I know that we can. That's I love you, higher ed. I do, I promise you. But B Labs is still my number one.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So speaking of B Labs, one of the things that we have fun talking about the ways not to do it, and certainly we love storytelling to reinforce it. But what we really wanted to focus on how to do it right because we do know feedback is really good, and so about a year and a half ago, sat down and Patrice, you were kind of the brain person behind the Hive model. So talk a little bit about what that is and how in every day you can use it.
Yes. What Hive stands for is highlight, impact, validate, and encourage. And the reason for that is one, we have a strong understanding of what bees do. And so that hive mentality of when we're doing something, being able to look at it through that lens was really the precursor to that. So let me kind of walk you through what the Hive method does. So first thing I said is highlight. So this is what you describe exactly what happened or what you're reacting to. So I want to give an example. Yesterday, you did a presentation and you used 22 slides instead of the standard 12. So a lot of those slides have more words on it, and people were not able to follow the way that we know that they should be able to. That is describing exactly what happened and then what you're reacting to, right? Impact. This is expressing why it mattered to the team. So again, this is because the audience lost focus, we missed what the executive attention to detail really was on this project. So really wanted you to make it more concise because our executives weren't able to follow you. That again, that's telling you what the impact is, right? Validate. You want to ground it with examples and ensure that people understand each other. So I saw when folks' eyes started to glaze over. And can you tell me what was intended on the slide? Because there were so many words that were there, I wasn't able to follow. So again, it's giving you an opportunity to know what happened and what you were trying to do. And then lastly, encourage. Not just praising, but encouraging. So what do I want you to continue to do? What should change? What's next? So I might say something like, I love the fact that you do a lot of storytelling, and that's a really strong suit for you. So, can you start to reduce that in your slides? You know the story, but you ain't got to write all of it on the slides. Make sure that you prep that beforehand. Talk it over with me, talk it over with another colleague prior to, so that we absolutely are able to pay attention to detail. And most importantly, the executive is able to get what you truly wanted to get out of it. So again, that's not just praising them, it's actually giving them a directive as well. So that's what the Hive does. It allows you to give these points either in the moment, in a performance evaluation, in a requested feedback, because you may request that from someone. So you can very clearly articulate what that person needs, what they're doing, what you want them to do, and how you want that to look. Then you can evaluate them. Because now that they're actually doing the things that were completely told to them, and hopefully, if you have to revisit it and it becomes punitive, again, you go back to exactly what the issue was and not just, hey, you don't do really good with your slides.
And what I love about the Hive model, there's a lot of things, right? I do like that it's concise, and I do think people understand that they're not good at feedback, so they want a model. We created Agent B as like a pilot of how do you give feedback. And so when you go to Agent B and you ask it, I need to give somebody feedback, it really pushes you to think about the impact. So my favorite one is, I had somebody call and say, Pam, I need to tell somebody to stop chewing gum. And then when you go through the Hive model, it's like, all right, you're talking about what happened. Now, what's the impact? And then they have to admit, well, the impact is it annoys the shit out of me. And then you have to say, what do you want them to do? I want them to stop chewing gum. And so, they kind of walk through it. So at that point, you're acknowledging, I'm asking them to do something because it annoys me. There's really no other impact than it annoys me. And that's okay. And you can give someone feedback, because I would want to know if something I'm doing is annoying you, and then I can choose not to do it. But it also makes you say, I need you to do this for me, because the impact is actually, it just drives me nuts, as opposed to, hey, there's an impact to the broader organization. So I like the model because it does allow you to vent and just say, sometimes I just want to call and say, oh my gosh, my roommate didn't take the trash out. And then at first you say, what's the impact? The impact is I had to do it. Right. And so then you're starting to like peel back and saying, because your roommate might say, hey, I'm okay if the garbage sits there for 4 weeks. Right. And so the impact is to you. And so it really kind of forces us to say, hey, what is it? How's it impacting? It might just be impacting me. And if that's okay, it's still worth giving the feedback. But now you're coming in a different tone, right? It's just, hey, it annoys me and it upsets me. And then the impact is I have to take the trash out because I don't like the trash being in here for more than 2 days, or whatever the scenario is. So I love the model because it does, again, forces you to say, is the impact broad? Is it me? Is it an annoyance? Is it, to your point, is it, hey, we lost the attention of these folks? So I really love the model.
I appreciate that. But I think one of the things that has really been beneficial for me is I use Hive when I'm working with students. So anytime my students do a assignment, my hope is to give them the best feedback because I want them to do better, right? So it's not just, hey, this is what you got wrong, but it's like, hey, here are some things to pay attention to because this is going to possibly change as we continue going. But I really try to give them a lot of feedback. And so two things have happened. One, I thought I was doing too much. So that was the first thing. I was like, okay, I'm sitting here and I am spending time giving each and every person customized feedback. I'm using this model, so it's not taking me a long time. And I was like, maybe, the students, they don't really care about that. And I had a student stop me and say, I'm a senior. You are the first instructor who has given me actual feedback to change the way that I do things. I did not know I was doing that. And that's the way I write. And nobody corrected me my entire career. They may say, hey, this is wrong, but they don't tell me what I can do differently. And then I started seeing the changes. Because remember, when we think about, anytime we think about giving feedback, feedback has to do with changing behavior. And I started seeing that. I went from seeing maybe 150 words for a journal to 250, 350. I had 700 and 800 words because they were like, I'm going to give you all the stuff that you need so that you understand what I'm talking about. They started to be better at what they were doing. And then they were able to feel more comfortable giving me feedback. You are responsible for giving me feedback to make sure that I am managing you to the best of my ability. And I am responsible for giving you feedback so that you can achieve at the level that I know that we've really got you here to do. And that's here, at least in the College of Business, is to get a degree. So a bunch of A's this semester. I'm very excited about that. I take that in as like pat on my back. Look at me.
Well, as a parent who has paid for 4 college tuitions, I thank you because I want them to get a degree and then I want them to be successful and productive member of society. So I appreciate that. So as we're talking about some of the things we've done for feedback, we've talked about the Hive model that Dr. Palmer created. We have Agent B, which is our other agentic AI to give feedback. But then we also understand that it's still hard. So one of the other things that I think it's been such a fun opportunity to help people give better feedback is doing this kind of what we call custom feedback, where we'll have an executive get on a call with us and we'll turn on Otter, which is my preferred AI note capturing, and I'll walk them through the Hive model and just have them talk. Talk to me about each one of your direct reports and highlight like the last 6 months. What have they done? Give me some examples so that we can kind of validate that and what the impact was and what you want them to keep doing. It takes about 15 minutes a person to just walk everybody through the Hive model. And then you can use AI to come back and say, let's give them really good feedback that's now equitable because everybody's kind of getting the same format, similar word count, but following that same model, whether it's the Hive model or whatever model they use. And so it's taken a process that was so executives, you ask them what they hate. They hate sitting down and doing performance reviews because they don't know where to start. And sometimes typing, it just starts. But if you just say, just talk to them. So giving a variety of ways, you can just talk into notes on your iPhone and just say, hey, I need to give feedback and here's what I need to do. And then you take that transcript, throw it into the AI platform you use and say, hey, can you give me some either praise or constructive or some coaching feedback for this person? And it just allows you to talk. So how do we make feedback a little bit faster and better, but also to the person that's giving it easier? And I think AI has by far been a game changer with the ability to, again, just let me vent and then you turn it into something amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, that's literally what I did. I created an agent specifically to give feedback. So now I can make sure that I'm giving not only authentic feedback, but timely. Like, oh, you remembered that. That really showcases what people can do. And it really makes folks become more even embedded in the organization, where you're not just kind of giving generic markers, but you're actually giving real events that are showcasing this person's growth. That really changes. That's one of the things I love about my own model that I have for my students. It's also telling them like, you did this really great. I see what you changed from last time. this is exactly what I expected of you. Here's what you do to continue in this same trajectory. If you're going to have some type of AI, it must be custom. I do not believe that you should just have this random software being used. It has to be custom.
And that's where we get into, and we talked about it in another episode, was the fear.
Yeah.
And when you think about, if you mention that you're going to use AI to do performance feedback, people are like, so it's just going to be so generic. And you're not just putting in saying, hey, give me feedback on Patrice. So we covered a lot in this session today, starting with acknowledging that giving feedback is hard. Giving feedback is a variety of ways. You can either share it with them in words, you can share it with them in writing, you can make a face, you can make a noise. People can listen to other feedback people are giving. I look at the cues somebody's giving someone else. I'm like, ooh, okay. And so there's a lot, feedback's all around you. It is a lot easier if you have a model and a framework so that you can stay on track and give feedback consistently. So we covered a lot, but it is one of my favorite topics. Patrice, how would you close out this session?
If I can close out this session, if you learned nothing else from me in this time, let me say very loud and clear, stop feeding people shit sandwiches and start feeding them some clarity. That's really what folks need. That's what they're looking for. That's what they're hungry for. And let's start satisfying folks with what they actually need, which is some really good feedback. And we've given you some tools in which to do that. We've also presented ourselves as a space where you can think through how to do this most efficiently, because that's what folks need, especially now more than ever. But you can't get away with shit no more. You can't get away with it no more.
Feedback's a gift. So let's make sure that it's something that they actually want and will keep.
Yes, yes, yes.